Like, share, subscribe, click the notification bell, and on with the video. Greetings, this is SHTF Garden coming with you to another energy update. Alright, so I'm going to jump right into it. So Dutch government announces energy price cap for consumers. So Dutch government unveiled details of its planned energy price cap for households Tuesday. This is from October 4th. Note that date. Together with the outline of a subsidy to systems aimed at easing the pain for small to medium-sized businesses that use a lot of power. The move comes amid soaring prices for gas and electricity caused by the issues going on. All right. So they're talking about putting a price cap in the Netherlands, right, for energy. Now, historically speaking, price caps have never worked. Whenever you cap prices, you end up with less supply. Because it's the cost to manufacture, transport, produce whatever good or service that is being capped doesn't go down for the producer. It only goes down for the consumer. And so you end up with a problem where shortages are always the result of capped prices. So anyways, they're looking to cap. Now notice this October 4th, they're announcing this price cap, trying to save some energy use, some energy bills. So 2,500 euros in 2023, they're saying it'll cap up to a certain point, and then it'll any amount of energy used above that will be charged at market rate. I wanted to go ahead and bring this up here because it was on the 4th. This is on the 15th, so this is 11 days later. Dutch to close gas fields hit by earthquakes despite energy crisis. Now I had to put this in here because this is kind of crazy because they have one of, if not the largest natural gas field in Europe, and they're going to close it in the middle of this. If you ever wondered if this was by design, if somebody was not doing this on purpose, or groups of somebody's, I guess you'd say, then this right here would be a strong indicator that yes, it is being done intentionally. Let's take a look at it. I had to go and do a little digging because the excuse is earthquakes, okay? And I'm no geologist, and I'm not that familiar with the area. I just started doing research whenever it piqued my curiosity. So I went ahead and looked this up because it kept saying it's linked to all these earthquakes, for the fracking and stuff. So I found the only study I dug around. I can only find one study about the earthquakes. Well, how were they linked to it? And you can skim through it. I put the link at the top right here. And so the conclusion is a little wishy-washy for me whenever you consider how desperate the situation for energy is. They're using statistical analysis and extrapolations to prevent the article reveal reasonable expectations that can be formulated about future numbers. One thing I wanted to note about this was the numbers ended in 2016 from this study, and of course they project what they believe the next line of earthquakes and stuff would be. But I could not find any data past 2016. So there was no way to be able to tell if 2021, 2022, 2019, if any other year met the expectations that they were putting out there. So I don't know, maybe there's data out there I didn't find, but I could not find them. But I thought this was interesting, so I wanted to go ahead and make a quick pause on this and put this conclusion in here, because it seems a little wishy-washy. There's a lack of expert agreement amongst the field operators, and NAM is their energy company that / government hybrid that is controlling natural gas. So basically, the only thing I could really find when I did a lot of research was it's linked to the earthquakes because NAM says it is, more or less, and they agreed to pay them like $1.2 billion in damages to the people that live in the area. And maybe it is. Maybe it totally is. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a lot to go on whenever you're looking at how desperate the situation is. Now they're putting price caps in, and they have all this natural gas here. They just don't want to use it. So anyways, one of the reasonings behind this in their conclusion is the social, psychological, and public health point of view for the population. They get widespread anxiety, personal stress, and scattered health effects from induced earthquake risks. Okay, so increased earthquake risks, maybe, goes up there. The lack of expert agreement of whether or not that's actually happening or not, and they make some statistical guesses as to what might happen in the future, but don't put any numbers down for future years because of anxiety. I think freezing to death would probably make people a lot more anxious, but I suppose that's more of a issue for them to deal with. I just thought it was interesting, so I wanted to look it up and see if there really was a lot of evidence to support earthquakes being caused by the fracking. And they've talked about it here in the U.S. I've looked it up before, couldn't find a whole lot there either. But this seems to be a little wishy-washy to make national policy based off of, in my opinion. So, Dutch government, this is another one right here. I want to go in there. They doubled down their commitment to close Europe's natural gas field. I'm not really going to try and guess on how to pronounce this, despite skepticism from local residents and opposition from energy experts. Okay, it's been a vital source of natural gas for the Netherlands since 1960s. And here it is, right here talking about tremors linked to gas extraction. You can never really find any link other than the fact that they agreed to pay the residents that live in the area, because they say it is. But there really hasn't been a lot of evidence that I was able to find in my research to back that up. It's more of a this could be. So anyways, the move comes as Europe is scrambling to replace Russian fossil fuels following the conflicts going on over there. And of course, they did a $16 billion package. Energy costs to support the measure, 13.5 or 84% of that spending came from this income right here. So they're cutting off gas production. They're supposed to be phasing it out. So it's not going to be cut completely off right at this moment. It's just being reduced. I think it's supposed to be 2024. It's cut off completely. I suppose it's subject to change, but at this point in time, that's the newest information I could find, that they're shutting down the production in this field here, even though it's loads of money coming in and loads of gas going out in the middle of this energy crisis. Seems crazy to me. All right, so let's take a look at some of the results of the energy policy they have so far. So Dutch greenhouses fear bankruptcy as energy crisis deepens. Yeah, 8% of growers expect to file for bankruptcy this year due to the cost of lighting and heating. Now, down here, it's the Netherlands, one of Europe's largest fresh fruit and vegetable producers. And they produce a lot of this in greenhouses because it's cold there. So let's look at another part of the article. They're also a top flour exporter, although for food purposes, that's not really that much of a big deal. And one of Europe's largest fresh fruit and vegetable producers. Its greenhouse is particularly vulnerable due to the cost of lighting and heating, massive structures to cover an equivalent of 17,000 soccer fields. That's an enormous amount of greenhouses to heat in the wintertime. But that is where a lot of the food is coming from, and they're one of the largest producers with these greenhouses. Now they're shutting off their own natural gas that could be being used to heat these things to feed the people. So even the people that live in the area around this gas field that may be suffering from the earthquakes are still going to need to eat. They're still going to need to have a warm, home. So it just seems a little crazy. So let's move on over here to some zero hedge. All right, so some of this energy crisis they were having is being alleviated by reselling of the banned natural gas and other fossil fuels through China. So the banned country would sell the commodities to China, which would turn around and sell it back to Europe. Well, everyone must be expecting a pretty awful winter because China is moving to shut this down. So China now moves to cater its own energy security this winter. Europe's precarious LNG supply, much of which was a function of continued Chinese reselling the embargoed gas, could dwindle ahead of the winter heating season. So it's like Europe is being choked to death. So they're cutting off. So the Nord pipeline was wiped out, which I'm going to get to that in a second. The gas fields in the Netherlands are being shut down. The production of energy in general has been on the decline in Europe for quite some time as they move towards green energy, which is not as productive as fossil fuels. and is not going to be able to pull them out of this. So when you start looking at all this, it looks like it's manufactured to cut the supply off, to make things prohibitively expensive, to seize control, if you will, in one fell swoop. Alright, so gas storage 92% full as of October 16th. According to data from Gas Infrastructure Europe, storage sites were filled faster than the EU and many individual members initially planned. Thank goodness for them. Although gas and storage alone will not be enough to see an economy such as Germany through the winter. Faster than planned, gas storage filling has eased somewhat supply concerns. How has it eased supply concerns if they know it's not enough to get all the way through the winter? The big risk is not this winter, but that of 2023. And that's one thing I've said before in conversations with people, is they have reserves. Okay, so they got these 92% full here. Let's just say it even goes up to 100% full. And they're able to get some kind of supply chain going from somewhere. They're going to burn through those supplies this wintertime, keeping the people warm, trying to keep their economy alive, even though it's, suffering from the lack of energy. But it seems to be intentional. But what's going to happen come 2023's winter? I'm not even talking about a long 2022 winter. Well, if you get like late frost and all this other stuff, you're just running on empty over there. But once you have, how are they going to refill these reserves come springtime? What are they going to refill it with? The damage to that pipeline is so extreme, there's not going to be any fuel coming that way. And if China stops reselling and the Netherlands cuts off their giant gas field, where are the people in Europe going to get gas? How are they going to refill these storages? Anyways, we're moving on back with Zero Hedge again. Wanted to go ahead and focus a little bit on that sabotage. So Sweden is saying they detected the underwater explosions on September 26th, shortly after large patches of rolling gas could be seen. Everybody's seen the images of that, and it's pretty incredible. So nearly 2 weeks later, they say their domestic security agency and their initial investigation explosions has strengthened suspicions of serious sabotage. No kidding, right? But what I found interesting enough to add this slide to the conversation here is they've said they completed part of their investigation, but they refuse to share that information. So Sweden said they weren't willing to share information, not just with Russia, but with anybody. So there's a lot of secrecy going on, and so they're working with other authorities, but they're not releasing their findings as to what's going on with the pipeline. So they rejected their idea of sharing any kind of information. At some point in time, some of it's going to come out. So they don't even want to share with Germany and Denmark, because the result of the investigation was too high. The confidentiality level was too high to share with their allies. So if you start wondering, trying to piece together, well, who may have benefited from this pipeline being damaged and taken out, we mentioned some of that last time. Of course, don't trust the narrative, so we're kind of trying to think for ourselves here. What would make this, if they discovered the evidence as to who did this, or at least have a good idea, it's so important and so profound that they will not release the results of their investigation, even with their own allies. So keep that in mind. And let's go on to how bad was the damage. Okay, so I wanted to put this in here because this came from Newsweek. So the first images taken of damaged pipelines have been revealed, showing the extent of the damage. So pipelines 1 and 2, which transported gas from the place to Germany, underneath Baltic Sea, suffered ruptures last month. We know this already. New images appear to show tears in the seabed near the side, and let's go and take a look at this. Roughly 50 meters of the structure is estimated to be missing. Not damaged, missing. 50 meters of pipe. How long is 50 meters of pipe? Well, 50 meters of pipe is 164 feet for us here in the United States. 164 feet of pipe gone. So that's not, somebody made a pipe bomb and swam down there and attached it to the side of this thing. This is insane amount of damage. It eradicated 164 feet. Gone. Vaporized. Alright, so let's take a look. How strong are these pipes? Alright, so this is the internal diameter millimeters, and they designed it in 3 different pressure sections. And here's 200, 220, 200, and 175.5 bars. I didn't convert that into PSI, but I did want to take a look at the thickness. Now this is the thickness of the steel. So this steel is also wrapped in concrete reinforced concrete. So it's reinforced concrete wrapped around steel pipe is what these were. And according to them, they were supposed to be able to be in 80 meters of water and last for a serviceable use of 50 years in seawater. So let's take a look at the minimum thickness here in inches for us here in the United States. This 26.8 is a little over an inch thick, so about an inch thick of steel pipeline wrapped in concrete, reinforced concrete at that. 80 meters down and 164 feet of it's missing. This sounds like a military operation to me, and just my personal opinion that a very large explosive or multiple explosives had to be used to cause that kind of damage. Torpedo, I don't even know what would do that. So here we go. America's heating bill is expected to spike again this winter. That's obvious with what's going on. And I was going to put a slide in there about Europe's energy prices going up as well, but I think it goes without saying. And I wanted to put this information in there because the energy stuff, it just seems to me like it's so crazy what's going on with this, that it just seems like it has to be, there's got to be some kind of intention involved. It's got to be intentional. How else could it not be? How else would you turn off your own gas? Some people may have had something to do, or maybe not had something to do with sabotaging of the main line of LNG coming into the area. And then you have diplomatic situation with China shutting off their flow. It seems like the battle lines are being drawn here, people. You've got a lot of east versus west going on. You got consolidation of resources. Like I mentioned before, this is a resource war. And these resources, you've got certain powers on the east seem to be working in concert to strangle off certain powers on the west. The scary part about it is the powers on the west seem to also be working on cutting off their own supply. I mean, I hate to sound conspiratorial about saying, oh, well, cutting off their own nose to spite their face, whatever analogy you want to use or saying or whatever. It just, how can you be this incompetent? How can you turn off your own power and then freeze to death in the winter because you don't have it in your own industry? What level of incompetence would it take to do that? It has to be intentional. Anyways, that's all I got for the update. I'll come back with some more. And